Today we will be looking at ancient world religions. This will go along with your organizer on Unit 3.1 guided notes. Today's key questions will be: what are the essential concepts and terminology used to describe and compare religions? What are the basic tenets and core beliefs of the major global religions? How were various religions founded, and what impacts did they have? What are the similarities and differences between the major world religions? So first off today, we'll start with Judaism, and we'll look at Judaism's core beliefs. The heart of Judaism is that God has chosen people, the Jewish people. The Jewish name for God is Yahweh, and they have a belief in one God. God has chosen them, and he has made them a promise called the covenant. The people will be holy and worship Yahweh and only Yahweh. They will follow his laws, and then Yahweh will bless them as his chosen people. It is important in Judaism to follow those laws. We think of those as the Ten Commandments and other biblical laws put into place in holy text. And this idea in Judaism is very important, both laws as literally interpreted, but also the spirit and intent. This idea of moral, ethical character through following the laws and upholding their end of the covenant with Yahweh. The founding of Judaism is generally seen to begin with Abraham, often called Father Abraham. By the end of our study on religions, you will see Abraham considered an early founder of three major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. After Abraham has what he recalls as revelations or communications with God, you'll see several hundred years pass, and eventually these chosen people, these people of God, Hebrews, are enslaved in Egypt. And this is a very common story in church, Bible school, etc., but also in pop culture, movies, and things like that, this period of captivity. Moses is chosen by God, according to Judaism, to lead these chosen people out of captivity. This is where we see the parting of the Red Sea. The Hebrews will walk lost in the desert for years, and eventually this is when Moses, as you can see in the picture here, is said to have received the 10 Commandments, the direct words of God, his 10 laws to be upheld in this covenant. And most historians would see this as the official founding of the Jewish church or the Jewish religion. The people will move to an area they would have referred to as Canaan in the Middle East today, modern Israel, and they will set up a political body, a kingdom with military leaders, kings like David and Solomon. They'll build temples, and this is when they'll really start to grow and multiply into a powerful populous religion. Over time, this kingdom in Canaan will face challenges, including challenges from the Roman Empire. We've talked about those conflicts before, the Roman Empire's tolerance, but issues with monotheism. And here we'll see what's called diaspora. And if you look at the picture up here, diaspora just means spreading out or spreading out from a homeland. And this is commonly used to refer to Jews who will distribute all throughout the world but no longer have a homeland. That will change in the 1940s after World War II. But up until the 1940s, we do not see a country or an empire that is a Jewish empire. And so here you can see some maps of this area, again, modern-day Israel, around the Dead Sea, Sea of Galilee, etc. There are a couple holy texts in Judaism, the most important being the Torah. In the Christian tradition, this would be the first 5 books of the Old Testament in the Bible. Judaism has 2 other really important texts, the Tanakh and the Talmud. Tanakh is Jewish scriptures in general, so more books, a series of those. And then the Talmud. And if you remember, we talked about how this idea of following laws and moral and ethical behavior is really central to the Jewish religion. You can see this in the Talmud, these series of commentaries by scholars and rabbis and believers who analyze, break down, write about what it means to be a good Jew, what it means, the passages mean in the Torah and the Tanakh. The Jewish tradition, house of worship, is known as a synagogue, and their main religious leader is known as a rabbi. And you can see images of both of those here. And so now we're going to look at our other ancient religion, earliest major religions we'll talk about, which is Hinduism. Hinduism is really different from our other religions in that it never really has one written doctrine, understanding. It's almost doesn't exist as a single religion. It's some sects might be monotheistic, some might be polytheistic, they might believe in different gods. It's really very individualized and regional and diverse religion, not one with a single set of guidelines, leaders, etc., including no single founder. We don't really have a father or mother of Judaism or of Hinduism. We know it comes out of this period of Aryan and Dravidian interaction, out of that Vedic age, and it builds on those and the changes that happen because of that blending of Aryan religion and culture and Dravidian religion and culture. So the general characteristics of Hinduism are this belief in this supreme God, universal power, oversoul concept. It's not a God in the traditional Judeo-Christian sense, or even a God in the sense of the Greeks or Romans. But this will be called Brahmin. Please note the A. We'll talk about Brahmin again with an I, those priests. Brahmin is this oversoul, kind of the everything. Some Hindus might worship this, some might not. Some may see it more like a god, some might see it as an essence. Again, that diversity of Hinduism. Another key component of Hinduism is the concept of samsara. The cycle of birth and rebirth. We would think of this as reincarnation. And you are stuck in this, right? Your spiritual goal in life is to find ways to get out of this kind of endless cycle of rebirth. As we mentioned, the history of this is really unclear of how this gets started beyond this blending of Aryan and Dravidians. It is rooted in the Vedic age, those Vedas that we've talked about, hymns, rituals, etc. Over time, we will see a move toward focusing on gods and less ritual and more spiritual. But again, the details of that, the specifics of that are, we don't have a lot of information. As we've already talked about, your most important Hindu texts are those Vedas, very, very old texts that will be at the heart of Hinduism. But there will also be really important pieces of literature that will blend their spiritual, religious, cultural beliefs with literature. The Mahabharata, the most famous part of that epic poem, is called the Bhagavad Gita. And then you have the Ramayana. So these are examples of epic literature that is reflective and important to those religious traditions. In Hinduism, you have a couple different leaders. Your Brahmin is that priest, that official priest in that top caste in the caste system. And we've talked about how rigid that system can be in India historically. But you also have what's called a guru. And this could be just a religious teacher. This might be someone who might not be of that caste. And again, focuses more informally, not as a formal priest, but as a teacher. One last term to keep in mind when we think about Hinduism is this term karma. And karma really goes hand in hand with samsara. Karma is this belief that every action has a reaction. So whatever you do, there'll be a reaction in the universe, in the Brahman. If what you have done is good, then what comes back to you will be good. If what you have done is wrong or bad, then what you have done will come back to you worse. And this includes rebirth. So if you have good karma when you die, when you are reborn in that cycle of samsara, you will move your way up, right, from particularly within the caste system. So the better life you lead, the way you move up in the caste system in India is not during your lifetime. Remember, it's rigid. You're born into your caste. But what you could do, living the right life now, accepting the limitations of your caste and living right by your community, in the next life, you may work your way up the hierarchy. And I would point out the similarities this has in a lot of ways to the idea of heaven in the Judeo-Christian tradition, Zoroastrian tradition, that says, in this life, follow the rules. Your reward will come in the afterlife. And think particularly with caste system, how that would help people cope with what are clearly frustrations you would have. It's kind of the predestination, the fact that where you're born in that caste is where you will stay forever. Hinduism will give a hope that you can move up in that caste. It's just that hope is delayed. It's not in this life. It's in the next life. So, a key part of helping you remember and understanding these religions is to make sure you think about them comparatively. And so that's the activity we will do to reinforce our understanding of these two ancient religions.